Minister, it's regrettable that your senior colleague isn't here, given her proximity to the University of Limerick herself as a representative from the Limerick region. But in any event, you will be aware that allegations were brought to my attention in 2012 pertaining to alleged improper payments at the University of Limerick. I brought that to the Public Accounts Committee at the time, and it went through a process. Now, unfortunately, we don't have visibility or sight of what the process was. That was back in 2012. Bring it up to present day. A number of other whistleblowers have now come into the public domain. They've made a number of allegations which are similar to those which were brought to my attention in 2012. Now, these allegations are similar. They were reported recently in the public press, in the Limerick Leader in Limerick, and indeed widely by some other media outlets. There's a lot of commonality with all these allegations, but there's one common theme now which is coming through in all of this. People who raised their heads, who questioned and queried certain payments at the University of Limerick, many of them were asked to leave. Many of them were paid off and removed from their jobs, and in addition to that, many of them were asked to sign confidentiality agreements not to speak about their experiences. And I think, given the number of people who have come forward that's now in the public domain, it's quite serious. In addition to that, I'm aware of other people who haven't come forward, whom I've spoken to, whom I know. And I can tell you that those people are people of the highest integrity. They are people who have professional qualifications, and they're part of professional associations. So I think their integrity is beyond question. They have come forward also. So I think the alarm bells are ringing, and we need to sit up and take note in relation to that. Now, following on from all of this, the University of Limerick has now issued High Court proceedings against the Limerick Leader newspaper, which I think is quite unprecedented, and also against the editor of the Limerick Leader newspaper, Mr Alan English, personally. And that's something which I have a serious issue with, because you have a state-funded institution using taxpayers' money attempting to gag a newspaper editor and indeed a newspaper which is pursuing matters in the public interest, which are in the public domain. So, Minister, maybe you can address on behalf of your senior minister, when you're replying, a couple of issues. Is the Higher Education Authority the competent authority to hold an investigation into this whole affair, given that your senior line minister, Jan O'Sullivan, has said this week that she would support the intention to have an external examination of this issue? The reputation of the University of Limerick is hugely important, and we all agree with that, and we want to see it protected. She said, what we need is someone independent to investigate all the allegations. So is the Higher Education Authority the competent authority to investigate this independently, given that it has been involved in it back since 2012, right up to date? That's the first question. Secondly,
thank you, Deputy.
If you don't agree that the Higher Education Authority is the competent authority, will you or your senior minister appoint an independent competent authority to review this, to investigate it, and to report to the minister independently? Because there are issues pertaining to social welfare, there are issues pertaining to revenue, for example, which need to be investigated. And finally, Ceann Comhairle, Minister, could you join with me on your own behalf and on behalf of your senior line minister, Jan O'Sullivan, in calling on the University of Limerick to withdraw their High Court proceedings against the Limerick Leader newspaper and against Mr Alan English?
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Willie O'D.
While I have great respect for the Minister of State, personally I do really deplore the fact that the Minister is not here personally to answer a matter which relates directly to our own constituency. Now, in addition to the cases that have been brought to Deputy Collins' attention, a number of different cases, different individuals have come to me telling me essentially the same story. If people raise their heads and raise issues, particularly about certain payments, then they are literally hounded out. And this has happened in several cases that have been brought to my personal attention. Now, this reflects a very, very disturbing pattern of behaviour indeed. And all the investigations that have taken place, the internal university investigations into the circumstances surrounding the situation where people ultimately had to leave, show a distinct lack, a patent lack of independence. And, you know, one interesting facet, there are several things I could talk about here today, but one interesting aspect is that the two cases that are currently in the public domain. In both these cases, the university have made an offer to settle these cases on the basis that the two people resign from the university and collect 2 years' salary by way of payment. That's 2 years' salary. That's taxpayers' money. However, in both those cases, the university's so-called or allegedly independent investigator found that those two people had acted maliciously. I mean, why would you pay 2 years' taxpayers' money to somebody whom your own investigator, who's supposed to be independent, has found to have acted maliciously? Now, this matter needs to be properly investigated, and the investigation needs to be independent, and it needs to be seen to be independent. And I would also ask the Minister what he thinks of the actions of the Limerick leader, of the actions of the University of Limerick, in resorting to the heavy machinery of the law, employing a high-profile firm of solicitors at, I'm sure, great expense to the taxpayer, to sue the Limerick leader, an organisation which, like all provincial newspapers, is hardly awash with funds. The High Court action, the proposed High Court action here, will put a very serious strain on an organisation whose resources are already, I'm sure, struggling. Also, the intention of the university to sue the editor personally. Now, this looks like a deliberate attempt to gag the matter, put it underground, and prevent any discussion in the public domain. The Minister for Education knows better than anybody else that the Limerick Leader is the main print medium for both the city and the county of Limerick, which both she and I represent, and has been so for more than a century. I don't agree with everything the Limerick Leader says, or I don't agree with everything that the editor says, but the Minister will know and will appreciate that a free press is essential in a properly functioning democracy. And I would ask the Minister to communicate immediately to the Minister for Education that we expect her to contact the university and ask her to ask the university, as Minister, to call off these legal bloodhounds.
Thank you, Deputy. Palace Dodge.
Thanks, O'Hearrick. First of all, I want to thank the Deputy for raising this issue. And I think it's an issue that certainly is of concern to my Senior Minister, but she can't be in two places at the same time, so that's the way it works. I understand that the way that works as well. In early 2012, a former employee of the University of Limerick informed a public representative, herself, who in turn informed the Committee of Public Accounts of alleged irregular practices in the Finance Department of the University, her attempts to rectify them, and how she had been dealt with by the University. The issues were referred by the Public Accounts Committee to the Secretary-General of my department, and at his request, the HEA sought the response of the University. The University informed the HEA that they were engaging with the Office of the CNAG on the issues and had provided all related correspondence to that office. The President of the University also wrote to the Committee of Public Accounts, stating that the University was satisfied that it had dealt fully with the allegations made by their former employee as follows. The University refutes in the strongest possible terms these allegations. The University has at all times paid expenses in accordance with its travel and subsistence policy and is satisfied that the controls in place ensure that payments are reimbursed in accordance with the policy. The letter goes on to say that the University was in correspondence with the Office of the CNAG on the matter, and that the University is subject to rigorous auditing on an ongoing basis. This includes external audit, internal audit and oversight by the Governing Authority's Audit and Risk Management Committee. The area of expenses is generally reviewed annually as part of the annual audit. A recent report to the Governing Authority Audit and Risk Management Committee by the University's external auditors confirmed that there were no weaknesses identified in relation to the controls in place regarding expenses. And I finish quoting. In June this year, 2 employees of the University who were employed in the Finance Department of the University requested of my department to make a disclosure under the Protected Disclosure legislation. They were directed to the CEO of the Higher Education Authority, as that person is a prescribed recipient under the legislation. The CEO, Mr Boland, met with employees on the 5th of May 2015. An agreed minute of that meeting was provided to the President of the University for his observations. It is important to say that at the meeting no specific allegations were made of financial irregularities at the University. However, the employees outlined a series of events which they then considered amounted to bullying and victimisation of them by management and colleagues in the University. They stated their view that this arose because of their questioning of what they saw as irregular practices in the Finance Department. The employees in question have not to date set out specific allegations, pleading a lack of confidence in the University to properly inquire in them. So, Chair, if I have a little bit more time just to finish the full. The University, in response to the HEA, refuted the claims made by their employees. They stated that the allegations of bullying and victimisation were not substantiated, that the employees had refused to cooperate with various inquiries and had been found by one inquiry to have made malicious claims. Both employees are now subject to disciplinary proceedings. More recently, the former employee has contacted the HEA, repeating her initial allegations. So, at her request, Mr Boland met her last evening. Just to confirm that the Department of Minister Sullivan have a number of concerns on a few different levels. First of all, in the case of the employees and the former employee, they continue to feel victimised for having, as they see it, challenged irregular practices. The University is also an important institution regionally and nationally, and the current controversies are potentially damaging to its high reputation, which I think you've expressed yourself as well, Deputies. They need to be dealt with comprehensively and conclusively and as soon as possible. The demands of public accountability are such that the truth of any allegation of misconduct in a higher education institute needs to be established beyond reasonable doubt. Having regard to these considerations, the HEA, in consultation with my department and with the University, will now put in place a process of review. The precise terms of reference will be established in the next few days. However, the review will be independent of the University's processes. I'm going to stress that. Will be independent of the University's processes and will cover how the initial inquiry into the allegations of irregular payments and the allegations of victimisation and bullying have been dealt with by the University. A final report will be concluded by the end of November, and if that is not possible, an interim report will be provided.
Thank you. Minister, Deputy Niall Collins.
Thanks, Minister, for your reply. I think it's fair to say that your reply were moving in the right direction in relation to this, and I want to acknowledge that. You have indicated that you intend to establish a review, and I think it's important that this review, in the first instance, shouldn't rule out any wider investigation if the review concludes that that is merited and required. I also think that the report which is imminent, whether it's a full report or an interim report, it should be reportable to the Minister for Education. It shouldn't be reportable to the Higher Education Authority or to the Department. I await with interest to see what the terms of reference are, because the terms of reference will have to be broad, and broad enough to include the whistleblowers who I have and whom Deputy OD have spoken to, whose allegations and whose stories aren't in the public domain. I think they will have to be afforded an opportunity in confidence to speak to the review panel also. I think that is critical, because there are more people out there who are saying the same thing, and they can't all be wrong. And finally, Minister, you didn't address the request that I've made of you and that Willie, my Deputy OD, has made of you in relation to the High Court proceedings against the Limerick Leader Newspaper Limited and against Mr Alan English. That's a critical point, because it's taxpayers' money being used to gag a provincial newspaper and personally a newspaper editor. There could potentially be jobs at stake, and by the way, it's the University of Limerick that has issued the proceedings, a body corporate. It's not an individual against a newspaper. It's the big university, state-funded university, against an organisation that is providing a lot of jobs. That's an important point, and I would ask you on your own behalf and on behalf of your senior minister to call on the University of Limerick to withdraw their High Court proceedings.
Thank you, Deputy.
Yeah, Minister, thank you for your reply. I just want to get clarification on one point, Minister. You state that there will be a review of the circumstances surrounding this specific case, but a number of other people have come to people like myself and Deputy Collins who have made similar complaints. Will the investigation be able to take evidence from those people in view of the fact that they have already been forced by the University to sign confidentiality clauses in relation to settlements that have been made at the time of the termination of their employment? I think it's critically important that their story also be heard, so as that the total context will be available to the independent investigator. And secondly, Minister, can I finally ask you, if you would ask the Minister for Education to request or tell the University of Limerick to withdraw these legal proceedings against both the Limerick Leader and the editor, Mr Alan English. They are both inappropriate and excessive. And finally, could you give us an assurance that the two employees in question in relation to this particular case, will not have their employment formally terminated? They are suspended now. Can we have an assurance that their employment won't be terminated until the conclusion of these proceedings?
Thank you, Deputy. Final reply.
Yeah, again, the full terms of reference will be available in the next couple of days, and I can certainly get them sent on to you as well. In relation to the terms of reference, I presume they will be wide to cover all this. I think the department, the HAA and all involved are anxious that this is dealt with fully and conclusively, and everything is dealt with. So I think there's no point in having a review that doesn't cover all the concerns and all the wrongdoings, alleged wrongdoings. So I think that will be dealt with as well. In relation to the person, my understanding, only one person has signed a confidentiality clause, and that person has come forward with more allegations. So I presume there'll be space there to deal with them as well. Yeah, well, I'm only aware of one. I don't have all the information. You'll appreciate I don't have the full case, but I can check that for you. I'll get that confirmed for you as well. But I think the idea, the hope here is that this review will deal with all this one way or the other, and that's why it will be dealt quite quickly. In relation to your concern that it won't prevent a further investigation, I don't think it will, but naturally we can't prejudge what it's going to come out with. But I mean, the review, I presume, will make recommendations and leave it at that. But I think it's the right process to be dealt with first of all. You asked, will be the HAA. They, under the legislation, it is under the Protected Disclosure legislation, Act 2014, it is the right channel to go through is with the HAA, but the Minister is in conjunction with the Department as well and the University as well, so I'll get that confirmed for you. In relation to High Court proceedings, look, it's my own view that it's always best to avoid these where all possible, but it's not in my gift to lecture to anybody what they should or shouldn't do, but I'll certainly raise it with the Minister and with the Department as well, and we can express our view. Yeah, I said I give my view on it. It's not in my gift to ask them to tell them to do that, but it's a view of mine that it's best to avoid High Court proceedings where possible, and we'll see how this review comes on, but I'll discuss this with the Department as well.